And good morning, everyone. Welcome to KCBD Now. I'm Kurt Kaiser with you on a Thursday morning. My guest today will be Danny Koch, and we're talking all things veterans. We're also going to be talking about one of the Lubbock legends, Don Caldwell, and some other things that we'll visit with Danny. Danny is a good friend and a good friend of the veterans and veterans organizations, so we're going to have a good time today. We'll get to that in just a moment. Coming up tomorrow, speaking of Don Caldwell, former owner of the Cactus Theater, we're now going to be talking tomorrow with Daryl Holland, current owner. Daryl has been the owner of the Cactus for 10 years now, and we'll be discussing all things about the Cactus Theater, looking at some upcoming shows, talking about some changes that Daryl has made at the Cactus Theater, so we'll be looking forward to that as well. My guest on Monday will be Carla Holland. No, I don't believe any relation to Daryl, but Carla is with the Texas Tech University Small Business Development Center. We'll be talking about a small business leadership conference. That's coming up on September 15th. We'll also discuss some of the things that the Small Business Development Center is doing. So that's coming up Monday. Tuesday, Michelle Hall and Devin Mankins will be here. They're talking about Ignite Hope 5K. We'll be discussing what that's all about. That's coming up September 12th. And also the month of September is Suicide Prevention Month. This ties in with that. So that's just a look ahead to some of the things that we'll be doing in the days ahead. KCBD Now is brought to you each Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock, right here on kcbd.com. And I'll be hosting that program each and every Monday through Friday and look forward to you joining us. Joining us today, magically appearing beside me, is Danny Koch. And Danny, I've been telling people how involved you are with the Veterans Association and different veterans groups and things like that. How did you develop the love you have for the veterans, and why do you believe so strongly in what you do for the veterans?
Well, first of all, Kurt, thanks for having me on.
You bet.
It's a good question, and I'm asked that often. Where did my passion and June's passion come to be advocates for our veterans? But it all started on January 27th, 2007. It was a Saturday morning. June and I were living in Cypress, Texas at the time. And Friday night we flew to Lubbock for a job possibility with a dear friend. And we were going to have lunch Saturday morning. And Paul, our oldest son, had been deployed during the surge in Iraq at that time and had been deployed since September 1st in Iraq. And June never slept good during that deployment. So we flew to Houston and flew from Houston to Lubbock. And Friday night, June, I had another sleepless night. And I woke up early and she was asleep. So I went downstairs, had some coffee, and read the newspaper. And you read newspapers back in 2007.
Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah.
And I come back to the room about 9:30, and June is up and getting dressed. And I decided to check my phone for messages. And I saw I had a message. And I was thinking, well, that was our friend that was probably confirming lunch that day. So I checked the message, and it was a message that I will never forget. And it simply said, "Hey, Mr. Koch, this is First Lieutenant Losey, Fort Drum. It's an emergency. Please call me back at this number. I will be waiting for your phone call." So I'm listening, and June sees me intently listening to the message, and she looks at me and says, "What's wrong?" I said, "We're supposed to call Fort Drum."
Wow. And you have all kinds of thoughts going through your mind.
So I, being a good soldier myself that day, I called back, and a young lady answers the phone, "Fort Drum, Casualty Assistant Department." And I meekly or barely said, "Lieutenant Losey, please." And he gets on the phone and he says, "Thank you, Mr. Koch, for calling me back. Mr. Koch, have you talked to Private Paul Hunter Koch in the last 36 hours? And I'm thinking, I wonder if they lost him.
Unusual question, yeah.
And I said, well, we communicated via emails, and he said he was going on a mission, and I kind of read in between the lines that it was something that could be challenging. And I think that surprised him. It took him off his course, and he captured the moment and said, Mr. Koch, Private Koch was hit by an IED this morning. It was complex injuries, but they're not life-threatening. He's in the green zone right now, having surgery and having surgeries. He will call you tomorrow when he is out of surgery, but I want to once again reinforce they're not life-threatening. So June listened closely to the conversation, and that night was the first night she slept soundly in a
Wow.
long time.
Wow.
And Paul did call the next day and on morphine and somewhat intoxicated, if you would.
Yeah.
And he shouted out,
Interesting call, I
yeah,
bet.
he shouted out, "Dad, did you hear the news?" I said, "What news?" He said, "Dad, you didn't hear the news?" I said, "What news, Paul?" He said, "I got blown up yesterday." And I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Well, yeah, I'm okay." And so that was the beginning of a journey for almost 18 months. He left the green zone in a day or two, went to Landstuhl in Germany where he had more surgeries on his right leg that was broken badly, but they protected the integrity of the leg. He was there in Germany for about a week. Then he flew to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. Got there Monday morning about 2 in the morning, and he called us when he got there, and he was really agitated. They had found that his left heel had been crushed,
Oh, wow.
and that was besides the right leg. And
Yeah.
from what I understood then and what I understand now, that's one of the most challenging wounds you can have to your body is having your heel crushed. And interesting enough, almost automatic amputation of the ankle.
Really?
Yeah. But God works in mysterious ways. That was Monday morning. We went to the hospital that night, or we went to San Antonio from Cyprus later that day. And Friday, he had surgery on his right leg, then on his left ankle, almost 12 hours total in surgery. And the blessing was the doctor that did the reconstruction of his left heel was a guy by the name of Dr. Jim Fickey. You might have met him, Kurt, in one of our dinners.
Yeah.
He reconstructed that heel.
Wow.
And about midnight, he called us, wanted to visit with Paul's mother and father. And we didn't know him from Adam. He was a full bird colonel, world-class surgeon. He would eventually retire from the Army and become head of operations, head of surgery at Johns Hopkins
Oh,
University.
wow.
But he wanted to know more about Paul, what Paul was like, what his dreams and passions were. And he finally said, "Mr. and Mrs. Koch, I want you to know I nailed your son's surgery."
Wow.
And we looked at him kind of bewildered. "What do you mean
You nailed it. Yeah.
He said, "My best friend in Iraq, I was in charge of the hospital, and he was second command. He was killed by the insurgents. And I've always made a promise that I would nail every surgery from that day forward of an injured soldier, Marine, sailor, or airman." And we would find out 4 years later, Paul would have some out of the Army by then in Lubbock. And he was having problems with his leg, so we took him to Covenant, to ER, and they took x-rays, and the technician comes back about 30 minutes later and goes directly to his patient, Paul, avoiding his mother and father. And he has the x-rays, and he shows Paul the x-rays, and he's looking at him and said, "Who did your surgery on your heel?" And June and I are thinking, "Oh, God, he screwed it up."
Yeah, there's a problem.
And Paul explained that he was hit by an IED, surgeon, Army surgeon. And the technician says, "Sir, look at these x-rays. It's immaculate. It's perfect."
Wow.
And June says, "Don't you know he nailed it?" So from that day forward, we've been engaged in helping veterans
Yeah.
and being advocates and everything. The Army took incredible care of Paul. 18 months of that Paul was treated either as an inpatient or outpatient. Never forgot him. Some of our dearest friends now were his officers from the 10th Mountain Division, and we still stay in touch. So it was a terrible day, but maybe a great day as we moved forward and everything.
Well, and God used that day, Danny, and He's used you in many ways since then. You identify with what parents go through because of your experience. And I can only imagine, I teared up as you were telling your story when you talked about hearing Paul's voice for the first time. And I know he's on morphine, but I would imagine that had to just be an incredible moment to actually hear your son's voice.
Yeah. And the most amazing story why our advocacy is so important. It's not just that Paul was injured. It was what happened prior to him being injured. Paul joined the army when he was 20, and Paul was going nowhere fast. He was always in trouble. I've gone downtown Houston 2 or 3 times to get him out of jail for small crimes, speeding or really marijuana, things of that nature. And Paul always baffled me because it was troublesome, and it just enraged his mother and me that he was in trouble.
Yeah.
But there was also a part of me that was kind of humorous in one sense, that he always seemed to be one step ahead of the police. And I don't want anybody to be one step ahead of the police.
Don't do it.
But Paul seemed to always be able to avoid things and all that. But he got caught. But he was not going anywhere fast. And so he said, I'm going to join the Army. And his mother and I thought about it for a second, and we thought, oh, yeah, sure. During the war, too. Well, he does join. He goes off to basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia. And we're thinking, oh, this is bad. He's going to be kicked out in 2 weeks because he's not going to do anything right.
Yeah.
He's not going to follow orders. The most amazing transformation of a human being I've ever seen.
Really?
If you were telling me that was about your son, I would probably shrug my shoulders and say, nah, it's not true. But it's true because it was my son and we saw it. Most amazing transformation. Another interesting part, they're in Iraq, they're in southwest Baghdad in the Triangle of Death, a lot of terrible violence. Paul is chosen by the second lieutenant to be his driver. Now, why was Paul chosen as his driver? Because Paul was pretty good at driving, especially getting away from the police. And they had heard stories about Paul, so Paul became the designated driver.
Wow.
And Paul always said, well, it wasn't always bad in Iraq. He said, I got to do 2 things that I really like to do. I could drive fast, and I could blow up things. And Paul's second, then first lieutenant was a West Point grad, Tom Miller, from Long Island. And he gave Tom Cruise a battle for good looks and all that.
Is that right?
And somehow they became a lieutenant and a private became best of friends because they drove together and everything.
Yeah.
And Paul would say they would go out about 2 o'clock every morning, go to the commander's office, get their battle plans for the day. And Paul said sometimes they were not very good. And he would say, I would always wait for Lieutenant Miller to get back in the Humvee, the Jeep, and try to read his face what we were going to face. And sometimes it was bad, and he would look at Paul and say, Koch, we got to develop some plans to tell the guys. So they developed a unique relationship, and Paul benefited from that.
Yeah.
A couple years later, we were having a dinner, a fundraiser, and Lieutenant Miller came for the dinner, and Paul was here. And by then, he was a major, and Paul had gotten out total disability. So we're at a table, and they're talking, and they were engaged and talking to one another, and Major Miller would say, Paul, what do you think about this? And Paul would never say lieutenant or LT or major or Tom. It was always sir. So those are some of the reasons.
That respect stayed.
Yeah, so those are some of the reasons for our advocacy. Also, Gold Star families that we've learned to grow and love, that someone needs to be their voice. And maybe for some ordinary, strange reason, maybe God's used us to be a voice for those who are without a voice. And so we've been blessed in many ways.
Your story, Danny, had a good ending, a happy ending. Gold Star families, it doesn't. And just let people know, Gold Star families have lost a loved one in the war.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you showed me, you actually sent me a video that I watched, Woody Williams.
Yeah.
And boy, what a powerful, I'm going to figure out a way to show that sometime, Danny. We're going to have you back. But he talks about the history behind that. Started with Gold Star moms.
Yep, yep, yep.
And he talks about the fact that we forgot Gold Star dad. It started in World War I.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And what's fascinating about that, Woody Williams was the last living World War II Medal of Honor recipient. He was a Marine. Interesting enough, Mayor Mark McBrayer, I was visiting with the mayor on a project recently, and we were talking about some of our veterans' activities. Mark's father served in the Marine. He was a Marine, and he was at Iwo Jima.
Oh, wow.
And Woody Williams was at Iwo Jima, February 23rd, 1945, where the flag was raised at
Yeah,
Iwo Jima.
that famous statue.
February 23rd. Woody was about 1,000 yards away with his flamethrower. He had been charged that day to take his flamethrower and knock out several Japanese pillboxes because the infantry couldn't advance. And they asked Woody, this humble Marine from West Virginia, do you think you can knock out those pillboxes? And Woody was honest as the day is long. He didn't say, yes, sir. He said, I'll give it my best try. Knocked out 7 pillboxes that day.
Wow.
And while he was doing that, the flag was raised on Iwo Jima. And all the Marines, as he says, stopped the terrible killing for 30 seconds. And they all took their guns and shot in the air, celebrating Old Glory.
To acknowledge that.
To acknowledge that. So Woody went back to his duty, knocked out the pillboxes, and he had a group of Marines watching his back, maybe 4 or 5 Marines. 2 were killed protecting him, letting him finish his work. Woody never knew their names for 30, 40 years. Finally found out their names, and that was the birth of his advocacy, passion for Gold Star families, because he always said he was not the hero that day. Those Marines watching him were, in particular, those 2 Marines.
Yeah.
So that's why Woody became such an advocate. And so talking about that video, it's an 18-minute interview of Woody. That was a Don Caldwell project.
Yeah.
We had a dinner in Lubbock. This is August 2021. Woody Williams was coming down with his grandson, Chad Graham, and for a fundraising dinner. And we were having a concert the night before for Gold Star mothers and Gold Star families. And Woody was naturally going to be there and make a few comments. Don had arranged 3 songwriters to come in and talk about their songs and tied in with veterans. Woody's plane had mechanical problems. He didn't get in past midnight, so they missed the concert. So the next morning, Don had told me that night, when Woody gets here, bring him to the Cactus early, and we'll do a softball type question and get a brief interview and tied in with filming of the show the night before. So that next morning, we got Woody over there. Woody was 97 at the time.
Yeah.
97. And we went on the balcony where we did the interview, and Don gave him a real softball question, thinking 30 seconds, 1 minute. Answer. 18 minutes.
Yeah, you didn't ask another question.
Unrehearsed.
Right.
Unrehearsed. It's the most amazing, you're right, it's passionate.
It is.
And,
It is.
But that was, and God bless Don, because Don really loved work on veterans' causes and advocacy. And boy, that's a guy we all miss.
Absolutely. Don was so instrumental in so many things in Lubbock, and veterans was one of them.
Yeah.
But, the story he was telling, that it starts with Gold Star moms. When you're at a football game and you see people in the stands, they say, hi, Mom.
Yeah.
They rarely say, hi, Dad.
Yeah.
And so moms get a special place, deservedly so. I'm not saying nothing against moms. But in the story, Woody talks about that it was for Gold Star moms and that the dads were overlooked, but there was a dad that came up to him after a dinner or an appearance that he made with tears, telling his story, and said, you know what, dads feel it too. And and then Woody was instrumental in adding dads, adding families. It's a family thing, isn't it, Danny? And you deal now with Gold Star families. Yeah. But and you can identify a little bit with them, but they have a comradeship that's unlike any other when they meet with other Gold Star families, don't they?
Yeah, it's
And you've been around a lot of them.
It's It's interesting working with Gold Star families. There's two types of Gold Star families. One, those that want to be engaged. And the best example of that is Audrey and Steve Moran of Brownfield. Their son, Steve Jr., was killed in Iraq. They've always been engaged, always in the forefront, helping, supporting. Then the other Gold Star mother or family is opposite. They don't want to be engaged. The pain is too great. It remains hurtful, and they just don't want to be engaged. And we try to respect them as well as those who want to be engaged. But Gold Star families, they do have a kinship. And last night we celebrated 13 Marines, 11 Marines, one Navy hospitalman, medic, and one soldier that were killed in Abbey Gate in Afghanistan in August 26, 2021. 13 Gold Star families.
Wow.
And so we honored them at the Monument of Courage last night. By the way, part of that Monument of Courage is the Gold Star Memorial, Woody Williams Gold Star Memorial. And hopefully we can have another fundraiser soon in Lubbock to raise money, hopefully $25,000 for the Patriot Guard and the West Texas Honor Guard. Patriot Guard, comprised of veterans, help with funerals and other festivities. If celebrities are coming in town or something out of the ordinary for a veteran, with their motorcycles and other things, lead the parade. The West Texas Honor Guard both help with funerals. So we're going to try to raise money, $25,000, with the new cemetery opening next Friday. Well, it's already open, but the dedication is next Friday. We want to put both the West Texas Honor Guard, Patriot Guard in a better position where they can do better work and look sharp for all funerals and things like that. So our next project, collectively, probably with the VFW and the Purple Heart and the Friends of the Monument, is to raise money for the Patriot Guard and West Texas Honor Guard.
And I want to get the Patriot Guard on here. We want to talk with them about what they do, because a lot of people aren't familiar with that wonderful organization. You mentioned the Monument of Courage, and I know that, what was it dedicated in 2020, Danny?
It was 2020.
Okay, 2020. You were very instrumental in bringing that. Talk about where the idea came from. I know where the idea came from, but the fact that it came to fruition, and it was you led it, but it was a real team effort to bring that to Lubbock, wasn't it?
Yeah, Steve Owen from the Purple Heart, Benny Guerrero from the VFW, and community leaders and others. Everybody stepped up. I think the original concept was Christopher Beck, architect. He was a Purple Heart recipient, and he had kind of had the vision. And at that time, we were starting to work with Woody Williams and his foundation more. So it just all came together real quickly. And we raised every penny, not one penny from government or from any government sector. It was all privately raised. And it's a funny story. Final cost is probably about over $300,000. And this is at 84th and Nashville at Henry Hunnicky Park, between Willie McCool and the War Memorial. Well, we probably raised $500,000 with all of our activities and everything. But we were $200,000 short because we were always giving money away to other veterans.
To other organizations.
To other organizations.
Yeah.
So God bless Rodney Warren at Sonic. Rod Warren came in and helped us finish it off, got us across the goal line. So a lot of support from the community and our fundraising dinners, but Rod Warren from Sonic was really instrumental in helping us as well.
Danny, we talked about Woody, and you've had a chance to meet and talk with several award winners, whether it be Purple Heart, whether it be Medal of Honor, different ones. And one of the things that's impressed me, you mentioned the word humble earlier when you were talking about Woody. And you've had much more experience with them than I have. I've met a few, but one of the things that I've noticed, and I want to see if you agree, these are men that always don't want to be honored. They say, I was just doing my job. And that's a common theme for them, and they don't put themselves up, as Woody did, they put up the men who died so that they could do what they do,
Yeah.
and the other soldiers or the other Marines that were part of it. I mean, they're very humble men, aren't they, for the most part?
They are. It'll take your breath away.
Yeah.
But then again, it makes sense because they've seen the worst of the worst. And they've seen, as Woody saw two of his Marines killed protecting him, they've seen the others killed doing their job. There's a beautiful quote in the Medal of Honor book that describes all the living Medal of Honor recipients. Kind of interesting. Those killed are not in the book. It's all about the living Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But one of the quotes is, we honor those who are the real heroes who died in the service of their country. And their families were faced with two deaths, the actual death on the battlefield, but the greater tragedy, the greater death, is all their tomorrows were forsaken. And they will never be who they could have been. And I think that's how the Medal of Honor recipients really see it. They count their lucky stars that they were able to survive and be able to move on, and the ones that were lost. The best speaker we ever had for a Medal of Honor recipient was Florent Groberg, the only Muslim Medal of Honor recipient in the history of the United States. Muslim father, mother was French, and joined the Army, ran track at Maryland. And he received his Medal of Honor in Afghanistan. They were they were advancing, and he was out front with 3 or 4 soldiers right behind him. And a guy comes running towards them, and they spot him, and Groberg naturally wants to run towards them because he just doesn't feel like things are right. So he advances on him. Suicide bomber blew up in front of Groberg, and 4 of his soldiers were killed. And Groberg luckily survived with injuries, dastardly injuries, but nothing, no legs, no arms, like Paul, nothing lost. And Groberg came to Lubbock and spoke. And what was beautiful about his talk was at the very end, he dedicated it to the 4 soldiers lost. And he named each one of them. And he named their spouse and named all of their children. And his point was, these are the real heroes. And they're the ones that we need to always mention their names so they will never be forgotten. So you're right. They're very, very humble. Now, there's some vanity and some, but some of the vanity is rightfully so.
100%.
Because what they did was so beyond description and everything.
Right.
My favorite story, he's passed away in 99, was Roy Benavides, a Texan from El Campo. He was in Laos when he received his Medal of Honor. And they really couldn't push his Medal of Honor because he was not in Vietnam. He was not supposed to be in Laos. And so it was really pushed aside for many years. But he answered a call for help and jumped on a helicopter to help some fellow, and he was a Green Beret, help some fellow soldiers that were pinned down by the North Vietnamese army. He suffered 37 wounds.
Wow.
Before he got on the helicopter after bringing everybody back. He was so good at what he was doing. He even brought 3 North Vietnamese soldiers that had been killed. He wanted to return everybody home, even if they were killed.
Yeah.
So he finally jumps in. He had been shrapnel, gun wounds, bayonet, butt in the face with a rifle and everything. And somehow he jumps on the helicopter and throws his body on, and they're starting to fly away, and they're starting to put all the dead soldiers in body bags. And they put him in a body bag. And he says when they got right to his neck, the best shot of his career, he spit at him. And they made sure that they stopped. And 37 wounds.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And he received his Medal of Honor 1982 with Ronald Reagan gave him the Medal of Honor, and Ronald Reagan said, "This is truly a Hollywood story."
Yeah.
And Roy Benavides is one of the the two greatest heroes of the 20th century were both Texans, Audie Murphy and Roy
Audie Murphy,
Benavides.
yeah, another good one, yeah.
Roy
Yeah.
Audie Murphy's story is powerful. That goes to Hollywood, has success. Really, his heroic actions are just undescribable. They're unbelievable. But he was terribly, terribly bothered by all the killing. And he always said it bothered him that all the killing that he knew, there were a lot of kids that grew up as orphans. And it bothered him greatly. He was probably the first true American soldier that understood what PTS was.
Exactly right, yeah.
And he started gambling, maybe even womanizing, if you would, and got addicted to pills, pain pills, probably pills of depression and all that. Became a terrible addict. The thing that's remarkable is, what does a hero do when they have problems? He took it upon himself, probably go to a seedy hotel in Los Angeles, locks himself in the room, and doesn't leave until his withdrawals are past, and becomes
And that's
sober
incredible, on his own.
on his own. It's a powerful story.
Yeah.
And he needed money, and he refused to do alcohol and cigarette commercials. He did not want to bring that upon kids or anything. So, we're blessed to have heroes of great magnitude. But the great hero is not the Medal of Honor recipient. It's the ordinary soldier who does his duty, and sometimes not shot, sometimes not killed, but does his duty nonetheless, and comes home and starts his family and pursues the American dream. That is the great hero of America.
The key, Danny, is not to forget, and we're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, I want to talk about ways we remember our veterans, if we're doing enough to remember our veterans. You mentioned Audie Murphy, and I'm glad you did, because my dad and I actually visited his hometown outside of McKinney.
Yeah.
And there's a memorial there, and we went back and read the story that you just shared. But I also want to talk about PTSD, and if we're doing a better job of taking care of that. We've got a lot to talk about.
Right.
Danny Koch is here with our KCBD Now studios, and we're discussing all things about veterans. It's been a fascinating program so far. We will continue our discussion with Danny coming up in just a moment. You're watching KCBD Now on a Thursday morning on KCBD.com. Back with more in just a moment.